It used to be you would go home at the end of the day. Most people would go, oh, Cheers is on. Oh, MASH is on. Oh, Mary Tyler Moore is on. All in the Family's on. You just expected there'll be some funny stuff we can watch on TV tonight. Well, guess what? Where is it? This is the result of the extreme left and PC crap. And people worrying so much about offending other people. Mm-hmm. When you write a script and it goes into 4 or 5 different hands, committees, groups, here's our thought about this joke, well, that's the end of your comedy.
Imagine
a podcast
where time drifts slowly.
A podcast
where
Isaac
carries you away.
So let me be clear. We tortured some folks.
What's the deal with Jerry Seinfeld? That's the premise of this week's episode of Coexist Inc. He's in the news right now. One for his terrible movie Unfrosted, which we will be reviewing in the show later, but also because people are just starting to pay attention to his Zionist past, where he participated in an Israeli commando fantasy camp, which has you killing women and children. Also, his wife, Jessica Seinfeld, the philanthropist, gave $5,000 to some anti-protester group in UCLA to beat up protesters. Jerry's been a big part of my life. He was my understanding of Jewishness growing up in a small Florida town without a vibrant Jewish community or culture. So he was my line into it. Of course, it was Larry David who made me feel Jewish. But Jerry, I used to be fond of him, and now I despise the man. And for this show, we're going to do a lot of Jerry hate. I still love the show Seinfeld, but Jerry Seinfeld, as a person, not a good guy. And in preparation for this show, I was trying to think of some kind of corollary, some kind of character in fiction or like a historic character who kind of lines up with who Jerry is. And I couldn't find one. I couldn't find somebody in literature or mythology who exhibited Jerry-ness. And then I realized Jerry is actually anti-Job. The book of Job is my favorite book in the Bible. It's the last time God ever spoke to man. And if you don't know, the story of Job is a devout, pious man who does everything God wants. He's a good guy. And the devil tells God, well, Job's only good because look at him. He's wealthy, he has kids, he's got a wife, he's got land, he's got his health. If you take all that away from Job, then he will curse you. And so God proceeds to take away everything from Job and make him suffer. His life is a nightmare. And yet Job doesn't ever curse God and accepts the idea that life is unfair, God is unknowable. Which to me is like the most Jewish story of all. The King James Bible says, well, the last things that Job says to God is, wherefore I abhor myself and repent in dust and ashes. And that's a very Christian, I think, interpretation of Job. But there's a new interpretation of Job, which I like a lot. And it says, that is why I am fed up. I take pity on dust and ashes, which is humanity. And I like that a lot more because it's kind of telling God off. But in general, it's just a great story about why do bad things happen to good people, which I think is one question we all ask. Jerry is the exception to this question because nothing bad ever happens to Jerry Seinfeld. His life, his story, his art is just the minor inconveniences. He's just a hateful little person. So in this regard, he is anti-Job. Because God gave him everything, and he still curses God. he spits in the face of God by being so petty and miserable. So to talk more about this anti-Job figure, I am joined by returning guests Ben and Giordano of the Remember Shuffle podcast, and new guest Fake Jerry. He is a OG meme maker who has been on the Seinfeld Actually Sucks and is a bad person tip for years now. So we get on the show, we talk about the show, what it means to us, this new movie Unfrosted, and how it is quite possibly one of the worst movies I've ever seen. We talk about the B movie, and then we talk about Jerry's legacy. So listen and enjoy.
And I currently am deadlocked in 2 fake lawsuits, one with Seinfeld, one with Jimmy Buffett, because I did the same joke twice. Like 2 years ago, I told everybody that Seinfeld was suing me, and I made the same fake cease and desist list, which is not hard to do. And enough people bought it where I was like, all right, well, I guess I won't reveal the joke. And then with the Dark Margaritaville thing, same deal. I was like, it was on April Fool's. So I figured that everybody would just be like, "Oh, that's funny. That's a joke." But enough people were like reaching out to me, like, "Hey, man, you'll be all right. Like, you're good." I even had somebody today send me a message like an hour ago that was like, "Hey, what's going on with like the naming thing? Are they still after you, or are you going to take it to the high court?" And so it's funnier to me to just let these things go. And it's like the way I prefer to do jokes anyway is just to totally blur the lines. But those are 2 like unexpected successes of like, I just thought this would be like a funny 5-minute thing that everybody would be like, haha. But still, several weeks later, people are like, oh man, you'll be all right. They can't get you. You're covered under parody law.
It's funny because I stole your joke, like all good internet meme people do, because I saw your Dark Margaritaville cease and desist. And then I Googled cease and desist template, and that was like the first one that comes up.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And
so it's like you don't even have to, like, you literally just Google the addressee or, whatever, and then, type in the information. And it's not like you even have to make it detailed at all. You just say, like, for content on Instagram or content on Twitter, and then boom, there's the cease and desist. There's the lawsuit.
I used the address. I used Bernie Sanders' address in Burlington, Vermont. And for the signature, I used Hitler's signature.
Oh, nice.
This is for the coexist hats I sell. I literally sold like 40 hats because of the cease and desist on April Fool's.
Hell yeah. Nice.
And I don't feel bad about it at all. I want to make that very clear. Like, it's April Fool's. You can't, like, you can. I think that's like, it's like the Purge, but for scammers. Like, if you fall for anything on April Fool's, that's on you. That's fucking on. That's like getting molested by Stephen Hawking. That's on you. Okay? You can't blame anybody else. Thank you guys for joining me. I am not as formal as Ben and Giordano's show, Remember Shuffle, which is one of my favorite podcasts. I just kind of like lean into it. But this is all of us meeting for the first time. I mean, I've met Giordano in person. But we're here to talk Jerry Seinfeld. And I think right off the bat, I think we have to all say fuck Jerry, right? Like, we're all in the fuck Jerry campaign. Like, that's the side we're on.
I don't know. I mean, I think with this whole, pro-Israel thing, he's making a lot of good points. He's kind of converted. No, I, for the record, as somebody who has, been obsessed with the show Seinfeld, I hate Jerry Seinfeld. And the more and more people like Jerry Seinfeld, and the more like people get back into the show because it's on Netflix, the more I hate Jerry Seinfeld, and it's turned me into even like hating the show.
Yeah, I mean, I have the incredibly lukewarm milquetoast ass take that the show Seinfeld is incredible, and the parts of the show that have aged the worst is Jerry's fucking stand-up that just glares at you when you watch this beautiful, perfect show that's punctuated with these horrible moments of clean shit observational comedy. Yeah.
The only saving grace to that, which like is funny on the show sometimes, is there are several points where they do call attention to like, oh yeah, you made some cute observations, but I think your career has run its course. So there's like an awareness of that, but it is still like when you're powering through that show, it's like, oh, we got to do this again for like every episode for like 6 seasons.
Jerry's like a viral moment that never ended. Like everyone has like their 15 minutes, but Jerry's is an infinite 15 minutes. Because he's responsible for a certain kind of observational comedy, but that's been it. That's all he's ever given us. So as a means of being somewhat formal and organized here, what I'd like for everybody to do is introduce yourselves, and also like what Seinfeld, not just Jerry but the show combined, like means to you, because I think we're all about the same age here. We're all millennials, I believe. And so we grew up with Seinfeld in our homes, I think, like growing up as children. And so I want to know what Seinfeld meant to you growing up, and how maybe it has informed you as a more whole person.
I'll go last.
Let's
Sorry. Cut out my laugh. It's giving away the punchline because I know it made Jordana fucking less whole.
Yeah,
I'm not cutting that out. I'm lazy. I'm not doing that much editing. This is raw and uncut stuff, unfiltered. So let's start with fake Jerry himself.
Okay, cool.
Fake Jerry, go on.
All right, so honestly, oddly enough, growing up, I didn't really watch Seinfeld very much. And actually the first episode that I ever watched was the finale, and I was in like 2002 or 3. Because I like had heard a lot about it. My dad was a big fan of the comedian John Panette, who's the fat guy who gets robbed in the finale. And then one day I was like, I should probably watch the show, and I started there. So I started at the finale, and then after that I was like, okay, I'll get all the seasons and work through it. But the funny thing was my dad growing up was always throwing out like anti-dentite and, just other references to the show, which to me as a kid, I was like, oh, that's funny. My dad's fucking hilarious. And then eventually when I went back through the show, I was like, damn, my dad stole so many jokes from Seinfeld, but like respect, because I've stolen so many jokes from Seinfeld. But I would say in like the late aughts, I was like obsessed with Seinfeld, or, watched it religiously. It was like my go-to. I'm just sitting at home alone. I'm going to put this on. And to the point where I don't even need to watch it anymore. I just kind of have every episode encyclopedically, cataloged in my head, which is a blessing and a curse. And I think that's why the fake Jerry account started. But so basically, like, Seinfeld has been an information point for comedy, a way to like feel like you're living in a giant city without actually living in a giant city. And like, despite Jerry's horrible stand-up and bad acting, it's like it is still a brilliant show, and it's informed my like nihilistic observations about the world. Sadly to this day, it's like, at one point I was in like a large Seinfeld Facebook group that I helped moderate, and it was oh, we love Seinfeld, let's talk about it. And now I've kind of distanced myself from like the Seinfeld world at large, just because one, I hate Jerry as a person, and then I just have an inherent contrarianism where it's like the more popular something that I love gets, at some point I'm gonna be like, nah, this sucks. You guys are idiots.
Yeah, because people are dumb. I will say,
Stupid,
most people are dumb. One quick question here. Excuse me, but are you Jewish?
I'm not Jewish.
Okay.
I did date a Jewish woman for like 2 years, and there were elements of it that were wonderful. It ended up crashing and burning for the best. But no, I am not Jewish. I didn't grow up around any Jewish people. I worked in a Jewish neighborhood for like 2 years in my early 20s. Otherwise, that's it.
Okay.
But I've through Woody Allen movies and Seinfeld and Curb, it's like, you learn a lot about Jewish culture.
Well, I think that deep down inside of every single person on this planet is a Jew. I think that everybody inside them.
That's what they want.
Yeah. I think that we're all somewhere inside of us. There's like this Jew waiting to come out.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So okay. So thank you for that. Let's go with Ben next. Ben, tell me about your and introduce yourself and the stuff you do. You know, okay.
Yeah, so my name's Ben. I'm half of Remember Shuffle along with Giordano, a podcast you should subscribe to after listening to this one. My Seinfeld experience is, it's the classic fucking stupid 90s kid way of interacting with the show, which is like, I didn't watch it when it was actually on or at its peak in the 90s or 2000s because I was a child. But by the time I was 12, 13, 14, it was as ubiquitous on syndication as 90s Simpsons. Like, I think it holds almost as fundamental a place in my psyche as peak Simpsons. Much like The Simpsons, an infinitely quotable show that warped the way that we talk in a good way. You know, not that there's anything wrong with that. Mastering your domain, low talkers, blah, 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 blah. All the things that the show gave us.
Yada.
Yada, yada, yada. Holy shit,
yada.
that's another one. Yeah, I didn't even do that on purpose. It's an incredible show. And like I said up top, it is like true. It is the most perfect evidence that a stopped clock can be right twice a day. Like, in that this is the one good thing Jerry Seinfeld has ever been associated with in his entire life. Just riding the coattails of Larry David. There's almost a Beatles metaphor to be made here, but there's only two of them. So maybe we need to go for more of like, he's got big Garfunkel energy in making Seinfeld, right? He... Like, I guess you need him, I suppose, but he's not the brains of the fucking operation.
You need the straight man. Like the painfully fucking straight man, you know? So sure, yeah.
I would like to also give a shout out to Larry Charles in this talk.
Yeah, hell yeah.
He's like the person that gets no credit, where obviously Larry David is the legend behind Seinfeld. But the first 4 seasons, it's I guess more raw, gritty aspects, or some of the real fucked up humor is Larry Charles. And it's I think it's just because there's 2 Larrys. People are like, oh well, Larry David. I don't know who Larry Charles is. He looks like some homeless guy. But yeah, Jerry would be nothing without those 2.
Yeah.
All right, Giordano, tell us about your Seinfeld history.
Well, it's just it's so impossible to overstate how influential Jerry was when I was 13, 14. You know, it's the first show I think I watched that I liked that my parents also liked. So I felt like such an adult because I was like, look at me, I'm watching the Soup Nazi and my parents like this and I like this. So I just remember downloading them all off of Napster or Kazaa or whatever iteration we were on, and just trying to expand as much Seinfeld knowledge as I could. And it gave me this idea that because I'm from a smallish town in Canada, and I was like, oh my God, there are these people, these Jews living in New York City, yuppies. I was seeing yuppies on television for the first time, both here and in Sex and the City and in Friends, and being there's something about this that I want to do this one day. I want to be a Jewish yuppie. This is the lifestyle that I think has been the most appealing I've ever seen on TV. And so I just I decided I wanted to be Jewish at 14 because all of my favorite cultural idols, most prominently Jerry Seinfeld, was Jewish. But I'm in an industrial city in Canada. There's no temple. So I got a perm and I got circumcised at 14. And let me tell you, one of those things is a lot more permanent than the other, and it's not the one called the permanent. I remember I went to high school with, and for 2 weeks at high school, I had to tell everybody I had a hernia because I couldn't walk straight.
The even funnier line that you tried was no, I didn't get a perm. I have been straightening my hair every single morning since you've known me. And this is actually my natural hair. That was a heck of a swing on a lie.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And Ben was like, what happened to your penis? And I'm like, I've been pushing the skin forward ever since you've known me.
A penis comb over.
So was that event for you and like super traumatic, being like 15 doing that?
No, I was like I thought that would make me Jewish. I thought that's
Yeah, you're
kind of
like
all
this.
there
No,
was
this is
to
awesome.
it. And I was like, yeah, I guess I'm Jewish now. I can make the jokes or whatever. Like without
Yeah.
having any understanding of like, oh, there's like a whole religion attached to this. Like it's not just about making like witty quips with your friends in the big
Yeah.
city.
And having a
you know, but,
weird
like,
looking
that-
penis.
It's a very normal looking penis.
yeah.
I'll show you guys right now. But like what's funny actually is like my mom converted to Judaism like 4 years ago, and so it's just like
And
weird
she
that
got
we
circumcised.
She got circumcised.
She wanted to support her son.
Yeah. But she is like in like the last couple years she became like the president of the like Detroit area Jewish book club, which I thought was like very funny because she is like the least Jewish looking person. I keep calling her Rachel Julizol because she's like taking control of like some kind of local chapter, but it just like my fake Judaism seems to be genetic. But it's just like also like as a result of my like idolization of Jerry Seinfeld, like it's been so disappointing, like kind of ever since like Comedians in Cars Getting Comedy. Sorry.
They're trying to find it. That's what they're driving around trying to find on that show.
Yeah. And like I mean, I don't know when you want to get into this, Isaac, because you didn't send us an outline, but like his thing where he's like become the arbiter.
Bringing some passive aggression onto the show. That's
very
a
Jewish of you.
man right
That's
there.
would have been nice if you had given us a little outline. Yeah.
But like, yeah, it's just been so disappointing for like this person that like I literally like cut off my penis for, or a portion of my penis. You cut off your penis, Kramer. Why?
Oh no!
No, I've become Jewish, Jerry. I've just got circumcised. I don't know if it was ever made clear if Kramer was Jewish or not, but yeah, it's been really horrible. Where I'm like, it's tough. It's like an uncle that you love growing up, and then you get older, and you're like, this is like a racist asshole.
Yeah.
So it's been tough, you know.
Well, so I remember like when I, was like as a young adult or like I guess late teen, getting into like Seinfeld really. And at that point I was still like Seinfeld's not really funny, but like, it's the show Seinfeld. He's got to be cool. And I think at that point being like, a young liberal kind of guy, I was reading his Wikipedia page, and at that point it was like, oh man, Jerry Seinfeld gave money to George Bush. Damn, that really sucks. And now years later it's like that's, absolutely nothing compared to how horrible of a human being he is just across the board. And everything that we've learned and everything that they still do now, it's like, I set myself up when I was younger and just naive, but now it's just, tenfold what my 18-year-old self could have ever imagined.
I was just gonna say in terms of like him being horrible and being almost self-aware that he's horrible. I watched one of his Netflix specials with my dad at some point during the pandemic. I don't think I laughed once, but the way he shrugs off the fact that he dated a teenager in his late 30s, where he's like, I like to sow my wild oats. I had a good time and then I settled down or whatever. It's like, yeah, we've all been in college or whatever. Like
she was hot.
Yeah,
she's
He
super
just-
hot.
yeah.
So, yeah,
Like,
for
"What,
those
you've
of
never
you-
done a keg stand.
For those of you who don't know, Seinfeld, not quite famously, dated a 17-year-old beautiful Jewish girl, high school girl. I should say.
Shoshana
Wait, never
Lonstein.
mind. I take it back. I'm neutral, just a girl. I'm not going to describe her. She was 17 in high school, and he was 38 years old, and like literally like one of the most famous people in the world. Yes, now, and we're gonna get into it. Now, considering all the things we know about Jerry, that's nothing. Like dating a 17-year-old is like way lower down on the no-no list of Jerry Seinfeld. I'll quickly tell you about my experience, which is like it's not as extreme as Jordana's. I am. In fact, I'm actually an uncircumcised Jew, and I've never felt compelled to get rid of it. I scoured the real Bible, not the fake New Testament one, but the actual Bible, and in it, Abraham uncircumcised. Okay, in fact, what they did was they cut off the tips of his slaves' penises and threw it on his feet to appease God. All right, so that's what I did to make God happy. But yeah, I grew up like Jewish-ish. My father's Jewish, my mother's Episcopalian, so technically not. And I didn't go to temple beyond preschool or whatever. All my friends were also half Jewish, oddly enough, growing up. And but like Jerry and the show Seinfeld was this connection to this larger Jewish noosphere, this Jewosphere, I really felt connected to it in a way that I didn't to the Florida town I grew up with. And so a lot of my Jewish identity, my sense of self, my humor, whatever else, was absolutely tied into watching the show Seinfeld. It was my window into this thing that I thought I belonged to. It also gave me a lot of neuroses that I as a child that I shouldn't have had, being worried about going bald in 5th grade is not something. And it was something I was so freaked out about it because George was just like, your life sucks. It's never gonna be good.
Correct.
Ben's nodding.
Yep. It's entirely true.
Yeah. So it instilled in me these fears that I think if I talk to a therapist about them, I'd be like, yeah, probably Seinfeld did that to you, I think. But since then, Seinfeld has been this thing. I mean, obviously, I'm a massive Larry David fan. I think that Larry is a great opposite to Jerry's entire existence. Someone who actually hates himself. Yes, Jerry hates everything and complains about everything around him, but he does not hate himself. And I think rewatching Seinfeld, you start to see wow, he's not he's barely ever making fun of himself. His jokes are never about him. They're always about how everyone else is awful. Whereas Larry, aka George, is constantly self-loathing, which is a Jewish thing. Self-loathing is a deeply Jewish exercise. And that's where I want to start this show off after talking about a personal experience with it, is debating whether Jerry is actually Jewish or not, or if he's being Jewish, stealing Jewish valor. And I'm going to take the position that he is stealing Jewish valor, even though, and I'm looking at his Wikipedia because I'm lazy like that. He's born in 1954 in Brooklyn to a Jewish family. His father, Kalman Seinfeld, Hungarian, like my family. His mother was Mizrahi, Syrian Jew. Mm-hmm. That's the first problem, honestly. Syrian Jews. Do not, if you're a Syrian Jew, turn off this fucking show right now, okay? What's interesting though is his mother's side claims these in pretty intense connections to rabbinic royalty, including the medieval exilarchs, which say they're related to King David, so they're fucking Jewy Jews, Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, Jerry, I would argue, not Jewish. And in the show Seinfeld, he rarely ever alludes to his Jewishness, even though Seinfeld, a show watched by fucking Midwesterners, the most Jewish television show, I think, that that never really alludes to his actual Jewishness. So what do you guys think? Is Jerry Jewish?
Yes.
You circumcise yourself, so you go first. Yeah. More authority on this.
I mean, if he's not, then what ritual did I perform? For who? Who was that
was
for?
it all in vain?
Did you do a moil, an actual ritual?
No, they did it at the hospital.
Oh,
no.
that is... Well, he's probably a Jewish doctor.
In Canada, it's in the Midwest, I think it's mostly a medical procedure.
Yeah.
But I guess just maybe compared to I grew up in an all Catholic town, and compared to that, I mean, I saw Jerry as one of the propaganda poster figures. He could not be more Jewish. I was
could he be more Jewish?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like in terms of the portrayal of Judaism on TV, like unless you're watching a show like fucking Unorthodox or whatever, you're not going to see ritual. Like, get that fucking God shit off TV. It's alienating for people or whatever, right? Like, we're not like that. For most portrayals of Judaism, like that bit's going out the fucking window. Like, we don't want to see anybody like whatever rocking back and forth saying a prayer or something. So it's like just different cultural signifiers that manifest in, like you say, like neuroses, self-loathing, anxiety. Where do they live? What do they eat? I mean, isn't there? There's the episode. I mean, we see rabbis on the show, right? There's like the orbit of the characters. Like George George has an Italian last name. He George is
He's the most Jewish one.
Is the most Jewish of them. Yeah.
Italians are just Jews with better food, though, right? I mean, that's
But there's a whole episode where the rabbi uses George as an example.
A young lady I know, let's call her Elaine, happened to find herself overwhelmed with feelings of resentment and hostility for her friend. Let's call him George. She felt that George was somewhat of a loser.
So there's
Elaine's neighbor.
Yeah.
Well, so my my perspective on this, and I will say to the initial argument against him not being Jewish, like considering how important to Jewish royalty or whatever his mother claimed, that and then his portrayal of himself as Jewish, that definitely takes a little bit away from it. But so the Jewish neighborhood that I worked in, it's like there were a decent amount of Hasidic Jews, but for the most part, by and large, every Jew that I've ever met, and every Jew in that neighborhood, and every Jew from my ex-girlfriend's family, they were all very Reformed Jews that you wouldn't know that they were Jewish until you saw their last name, or until they hit you with a Happy Hanukkah or something. And I think that Jerry is the prime example of that, where it's honestly, if you didn't see his last name, if you didn't see the Moyle episode or the Rabbi episode or some of those references, you wouldn't know, especially if you didn't grow up around Jewish people, which
So your take is that he is goy passing.
I think he's goy passing, which he uses to his advantage. But he is also the archetype of the modern Jew, where it's you're Jewish the same way that I'm Catholic. I grew up Catholic. We went to church every once in a while. But beyond some basic cultural things and some church dinners, it's I'm not really I don't really subscribe to it. So he is obviously if you're Jewish, you're inherently going to be more connected to some rituals and stuff because they're so much more pronounced. But I think he's the archetype of the Reformed Jew that as if you're from the Midwest or anything like that, you'd be like, oh, I didn't know you were Jewish because I didn't really know what a Jew was.
Oh, I had a stupid bit. I wanted to float a stupid bit. I want to see Jerry Seinfeld work one of those 1,000-person Hasid weddings. I want to see that his material for that. What's the deal with having that 8th child or whatever?
He's got an entire drawer where he's meticulously kept yellow page notes for the giant Hasid. These are jokes for the tunnels, that I've been keeping over the years. But to give a serious answer, the show itself, I think is incredibly Jewish. Just the humor format, I think uses that. From what I've heard, is a Yiddish structure of having this guy who performs one immoral act and then is forced to dig himself deeper and deeper into a hole until the whole situation falls down on him. That calls back to vaudeville and stuff like that. But also his co-stars, Jason Alexander, also Jewish, Michael Richards as well, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who's literally a descendant of the Dreyfus from the Dreyfus Affair.
Damn.
Billionaire. She's a billionaire before she was on Seinfeld, and I love Julia. I will defend Julia, but go on.
The show is steeped in it. Everybody from the writers to the actors is Jewish. I think there's no way to get around that. Whether we talk about the character himself. Maybe that's up for debate. He's a fairly flat character in general, but
yeah, I think that the character of Jerry Seinfeld and the actual Jerry Seinfeld, which are really, I think we can now see that Jerry was always the worst actor, right? He was always the worst part of Seinfeld in that, like, he was like Jimmy Fallon, cracking up on an SNL skit. He was never a strong comedic actor, which I would contrast with Larry David in Curb Your Enthusiasm, who I think is a brilliant physical comic. Like, he is, he just, all he has to do is like a little face and I fucking lose it. I think it's so funny. Whereas Jerry, just for the life of him, can't keep that fucking smug look off his face. And every venture he's done since Seinfeld, it shows that he cannot be anything other than himself. And we've been given like little tastes of like who he really is, like on the Louis C.K. episode. Like, that's where I think he was like most Jerry. Like, that's actually who Jerry is. But as for Jerry being an actual Jew, yeah, I think, like you're saying, like, there isn't that much Yiddish about Jerry's stand-up. Observational humor is not, I would just think, is not Jewish to me. It's his humor is incredibly commodified. It's all about like cotton balls and cereal and just like shit you buy from the fucking grocery store, and like the inconveniences that Midwesterners experience, not the existential fucking nightmare that it is to be Jewish, aka human. Midwesterners are not human. So it's Pittsburgh, not Midwestern, by the way. I'll make that very clear.
What? No, get the fuck out of here. That's like where the Midwest starts.
Pittsburgh,
from the
no. Pittsburgh, not Midwestern. They made steel, okay? They didn't grow up on a fucking farm.
I claim Rust Belt.
Okay, Rust Belt. So
yeah, Detroit, famously a farm. Like,
yeah, Detroit is not Midwestern. I'm sorry. Also, if you're black, you're not Midwestern. I hate to break it to you. You're just not. You're not.
This is the worst fucking typology.
Let's get back
I've
to the Jew hate. All right, let's get back to that.
All right, it's a whole other episode. Sorry. I have a Midwest episode with Tanner coming up, and I'm gonna make this.
An even more racist version of the "you might be a redneck" bit, but it's inverted.
So no, I think that the sense of humor, I mean, obviously, Jews in the news recently, sex crimes, it's been tough for us. Okay, it's really bad. We have
4,000 years. What do you mean?
So like that's the thing is like we Jerry wasn't like quite a sex pest, right? He was just a bachelor, which is not Jewish. Like, he was too suave to be Jewish. Okay.
can you imagine him fucking? By the way, just like, oh, you like that, don't you? You're getting wet. What's the deal with getting wet? What's going on down there?
Yeah, man. Okay. Who's gonna do the longest Jerry impression here? Yeah, I personally have never imagined having sex with Jerry. What's become clear, especially in the B movie, and most recently Unfrosted, which is kind of the impetus. Well, the impetus is really like the Zionism, really, which is also, if you're a Zionist, you're not fucking Jewish. I want to make that very clear. You're not a Jew if you're a Zionist. It's a schism. They're as different as like the Protestants and Catholics. We're not supposed to be there. We are a landless, wandering people. That's our fucking shtick. Okay, we should not have a homeland, and clearly, the past fucking 70 plus years has shown you we cannot have one. Okay, we should not have one. So Jerry's Zionism, his absolute fucking terrible media career post Seinfeld is proof he's not a Jew. And in fact, what I loved was that in Unfrosted, which I forced us all to watch, which is I owe you guys pretty big for watching this, and we'll talk about it right after this. His name is Robert Cabana. He couldn't even be a Jew in his own movie. All right? There's no Bob Cabana is the most fucking Protestant-ass name I've ever heard. It is not a Jewish name. He can't even pretend to be a Jew. So I think that it is further evidence that Jerry is not spiritually Jewish. He might be uncircumcised for all we know. I'll hit up Shoshana to find out. But that's my any rebuttals. You guys got anything else to say? We move on to Unfrosted.
I mean, I think the if you're a Zionist, you're not Jewish. Argument's ironclad, and I'm convinced.
Okay. Thank you. I have to explain it all the time to people, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's the least Jewish thing in the world. When I was in Israel, I was in Israel for a couple months in 2014 during Operation Protective Edge, which is weird. It was fucking weird. Being in Israel, I've never felt less Jewish in my life than when I was in Israel. It is. They're not Jews. They're just like foreign people. Like they're not fun. They're not fucking funny. They literally are not funny.
Yeah. Name one good Israeli movie, right? They do the shoot and cry ones. They lose the sauce when they get over there.
They do, yeah. It's not good for us. All right, so we all agree Jerry's not Jewish. Okay, moving on.
Well, no. I do love how you have reappropriated the charge of being rootless cosmopolitans, and you're like, yeah, actually, it's good. It's good. It's what makes us who we are.
I think that Jews, we're on the cutting edge of modernity, and we didn't choose to be. We were kind of forced into it. We were forced to being the first like diasporic landless people, I think, or at least I'm sure that's not true, but in this story it is. We had to learn to be modern humans, which is unrooted. We do not have a relationship with the land. We have a relationship with the noosphere, the figures, like the global, the homo globo stuff, right? So we learned how to do that early on, which is why we're so good at it now, because we just had a head start, not because we wanted to, but because we were forced to. So everybody in the world is just catching up to us. You guys are just all the existential crises, all the humor, in fact. You guys are just catching up. It's us. We're all Jewish. We're all Jewish deep down. So anyway, are we good? Okay, should we get to Unfrosted? The thing I made you watch?
Do it.
So Unfrosted.
Could I ask everyone one question? Was there a single joke that elicited even one polite chuckle out of you in this film? Because I'll say Jim Gaffigan got me with one line.
Same. Yeah, and it was like the joke that they repeated like 1,000 times throughout the movie. But the first instance, I was like, haha.
Which joke?
Wait, the one where like Jim Gaffigan's like reading the paper and he's like, "Oh, Vietnam, that sounds like a great idea."
That's the exact one that I laughed at too. Yeah, Vietnam, that sounds like a good idea. It's like,
it's like, haha. And then they made the same joke 1,000 times, which is like, "Oh, we know how the future's gonna go, so let's make it." It's like, guys, you can't just keep hitting the same note. Like it's not going to be unexpected. I was going to say the kid getting the box of Pop-Tarts and saying like, you know what, leave the box. That might have got like a little out of me. You know?
So I took 3 pages of legal pad notes, and I mostly wrote down like, oh, this joke was the worst. I was like, oh, the first like Nazi joke was like, okay, that's like slightly clever, and then like 3 Nazi jokes in later, I was like, okay, that's one is just, most of the jokes are just rehashed Seinfeld stuff. But I think I wrote moon landing fake, only good joke. Not that I can even remember the joke, but I think jokes about the moon landing being fake are like, oh yeah, that's something I like. You know, that's for me. But I can't find. I swear I wrote down like best joke in the movie on this, but I can't find it. But I was pretty flat the whole fucking movie.
Yeah, it was worse than the Emoji Movie. You know, I think the only time I laughed was when Jack Breyer blew up. That was it. And
you were just happy to see somebody die at that point.
Yeah, maybe that was it. I didn't think any deeper than that. For me, it was just, first of all, Jack Breyer, great physical comic, big fan of his. There are a lot of people there who I typically would like, or I've liked their work in the past. And the fact that Jerry has this power to call up someone and say, come on the show, or come on my movie. Oh, I doubt they even got fucking paid, honestly. And they just, the fealty that comics in this country show to Jerry Seinfeld is pathetic. Like there have not too many people have stood up against him. He's untouchable. He's kind of like Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant. I think he's closer to Kobe Bryant because Kobe Bryant was a fucking rapist and he gets away with it. And now he gets to like die a hero because he he was impatient and killed his own daughter by saying, "No, take the fucking helicopter out there." It's his fault. You guys know that, right? Kobe Bryant demanded that this pilot go.
Okay, we're getting back to the Unfrosted movie.
Oh yeah. The what?
That was I think like one of the most like disconcerting parts of the movie for sure, was just that like there's probably like 35 guest appearances from like every notable actor you know. So like not only are you disappointed with Jerry Seinfeld, but then every time like a new face comes on, you're like, oh fuck, they were a part of this too. Like like Bill Burr,
Fred
Thomas Lennon,
Armisen, like. Yeah,
Fred
there was
good,
probably
man.
35 famous actors in this movie, and it's like, oh fuck, Jerry's taking them all down with him.
Yeah. I feel like Jerry saw like Magnolia recently. And he was like, "We're gonna do that with Pop-Tart." Well,
it felt longer than Magnolia too.
Yeah.
Actually.
So I think my least favorite, and like I guess one of my biggest questions about the movie is like, who was the fucking target audience?
Yep.
Because half of it
Yes.
feels like, okay, is this for kids? And then other half of it is like, okay, I guess like a lot of these jokes are kind of like, oh, we're gonna grab you by the nut clusters and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, is that for like young teens? But like the most of the movie, the real girth of the movie was just like kind of failed like boomer humor, where it's like it's all like the Soviets want to do this, and then there's like a couple Mussolini jokes in there, which again is like throw back to like that was funny when you reference Mussolini on Seinfeld, but you're just kind of shoehorning it into this movie. And like the whole time I was watching, I was like, "Who the fuck?" Well, I know who it's for. The movie's for Seinfeld and no one else.
Yeah.
Which I think is its biggest problem, maybe.
Yeah, I think one of my biggest beef with Seinfeld's place in society is that no one has rightfully dragged him through the street to be like, you have a shtick. You have a fucking gimmick. And your gimmick is what's the deal with.
What's the deal with airplane peanuts?
And that's all you can do. And if you try and paint outside the lines for a fucking second, you give us the goddamn B movie. Or you give us this abomination, this Frankenstein's monster of like, all right, we're going to have just serial Mad Lib word puns throughout the entire
every
film.
fucking joke.
Grandma's Holes. Remember that one? That was like a fake cereal they came up with. And it was there was nothing fucking funny about this. And I think you're absolutely right. This was just Jerry exercising he just is a demon. He doesn't have demons. He is the demon. The cultural references. He's born in 1954, so he grew up in the post-war boom, and he never suffered a fucking second in his life. And that's also why he's not Jewish, right? I'm going to bring it back to the main thesis here that Jerry's not Jewish. Like, he had zero fucking struggle. He literally just, like, landed into, like, gold pot after gold pot. And so, for him to make a movie where he waxed nostalgically about this period of time is very funny to me. The fact that he's also a fan of Kellogg's, like he obviously hates Post, and loves Kellogg's. Giordano, maybe this is part of your connection here, that he loves Kellogg's, and it was actually Dr. Kellogg who made circumcision a normal procedure in the United States. Did you guys know that?
Yeah, for the Gentiles.
Yeah.
Thought it would discourage masturbation, but life found a way, at least in my case, somehow, some way.
It's wild that he took like a real person and managed to like who actually like is a kooky character, like cartoonish figure, and managed to flatten like even this one interesting aspect of the story. Like just gets rid of that detail entirely in favor of Jim Gaffigan's character, whose character is what? That he's kind of a silly guy. Like it's so bad. Like one of my least favorite parts of this movie is that clip I posted on the pod's Instagram, which is just like the way that people speak is like it's you finding out about jokes for like the first time at like 10 years old. Like that "pardon my French" line I think is the most indicative of what I'm talking about, where Jim Gaffigan is like, he's on his own goddamn milk garden, pardon my French. And then it cuts to Melissa McCarthy, and she's like, wait, that's not French. And it's like, this is literally one of the oldest jokes of all time. Like, it's up there with, like, how did the chicken cross the road? Like, it's like your grandfather makes this joke, and it's like that made it into the final script from a guy who's, like, supposedly the arbiter of, like, what's funny and what isn't funny. It blows my mind. I would love to ask Jerry, like, pardon my French, really? Like, this is the best. This made it into like a $30 million movie or however, maybe more. Pardon my French? Like, are you fucking kidding me?
The other thing he did that was also incredibly juvenile was he's known to be a anti-blue comic, right? Like, he doesn't like swear words or raunchy humor, but in this movie he made a lot of butt jokes, and they were terrible. I mean, they were so bad. Like when Gaffigan says, "You'll find yourself on the business end of a cow." That's the butt. It's like, holy shit. And then Jerry has to, when he gets fucking black bagged by the milk cartel, and he has to run through like the cow butts. That's what he thinks is fucking funny.
Literally something a child would write. Not something an adult would write for children, but something a child would write for children. And then he gets caught, then he needs to run by the cow butts, and the cow butts fart on him a lot. Ralph Wiggum-ass joke writing. What the fuck?
And then the next scene will be like, oh, you have to know who Walter Cronkite is to find this funny.
Yeah. You have to know who Khrushchev is to fucking know this scenario.
So, the question who this movie was for was clearly for Jerry Seinfeld. And the fact that it was cereal makes perfect sense because of Jerry's very obvious obsession with cereal in the show Seinfeld. Now, I want to ask you guys, what do you, if you were a psychoanalyst, what do you make of a man who loves cereal? Someone who's like, thinks highly of cereal? Because I, admittedly, have a cereal problem. Like, if I buy a box of fucking cereal, I eat that whole thing, and I feel terrible, and it's bad. It's just bad for you. It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
Like, I would never, if I bring a girl over, I'm not gonna have cereal boxes in the house. That's a fucking huge red flag if you have cereal in the house. So what do you make? How do you psychoanalyze a man who thinks highly of cereal?
Oh no. All right. So my answer to this, and it's like the bigger picture of this film and then also Seinfeld in general, like the show, is that, one, he's obsessed with cereal. Two, he's obsessed with toys. Three,
Superman.
he dated, Superman, and then every toy reference that, he was so fond of during his childhood making an appearance in this film. But so there is like just a general, Seinfeld is obsessed with, his childhood and in the innocence of childhood that he's left behind to, be a New York yuppie and a comedy guy or whatever. And, this is more just like leading into one joke. But so years ago, I watched a Lewis Carroll documentary, and Lewis Carroll with Alice, like the actual young girl. A lot of people are like, oh, he was a pedophile. And then a lot of Lewis Carroll defenders were like, oh, he's not a pedophile. He's just obsessed with innocence, the innocence of childhood. And the rebuttal to that was, yeah, like most pedophiles. And I think that Seinfeld is like, one, he was obsessed with the innocence of Shoshana. And this movie is just him, in a more PC way, connecting to his fondness for the, the innocence that he may have had or the, the memories that he left behind. But it's all just like an obsession with just like being a child and never being able to like either grow up or get back to that point.
And the movie opens up with a young boy putting a bunch of toys in a bindle and sitting next to Jerry at a 50s style diner, which is also very funny because like if that were to happen in real life, like Jerry's sitting by himself at this diner counter and there's nobody else sitting at the diner, and this little boy hops up and sits right next to him. Jerry, the real Jerry Seinfeld, would be like, "Why the fuck are you sitting next to me? There's all these seats." he wouldn't like actually like be like, "Oh, I'm gonna distract."
Can't you
this
see,
kid.
you little cretin? There's all these empty seats.
Are you Chinese? And So yes, I think that's a good. I think it's an excellent point. Like his obsession with innocence, and yet he has no fucking empathy, right? Which is something I think a child has infinite amounts of. Like you feel bad as a kid, like you feel bad for a rock. You know, like I remember when my parents replaced an old refrigerator, I cried. I was like, no, that's our refrigerator. Like it kept our food cold for so you're gonna get rid of it. Like so if you're he's projecting a pedophilic like notion onto childhood, not like an actual empathetic one for sure.
Yeah. I was gonna quote the fake Bible. I'm sorry on our episode that's so much about Judaism. You know, Paul wrote, "When I was a child, I understood as a child. I thought as a child. I felt as a child. I reasoned as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things." And Jerry has never put away childish things, as represented by the cereal.
I know that this is supposed to be like a parody of other brand movies that are all the rage right now. But it didn't feel like a parody in any sense or form. Like it was so confusing. Yeah. There was no moral compass here, which maybe is the most Jewish part about it, because, you know, Yiddish folktales, you know, make what you're supposed to have done, like the uncertainty of morality, like present. Like that's like one of the foundation, I think, is facets of Yiddish storytelling. This one, I don't know what the moral was. Like, what was the point of the story itself? Like,
Pop-Tarts are good. That's
Pop-Tarts. They're not though. They're terrible. Yeah. They suck dick, dude. I hate Pop-Tarts.
This movie worked on me. I ate a Pop-Tart while watching this. Message received.
But there's no moral story here. There's like you should beat your opponent by any means necessary? Is that the story? What's the point of this story?
Wouldn't it be funny if there was a wacky lore behind Pop-Tarts, I guess is kind of the point. What about that?
Yeah, I guess like the point ostensibly was supposed to be like, oh, there's all these product movies coming out. Like, wouldn't it be funny if we parodied them? But like, in order for parody to work, you have to fundamentally like understand the thing that you are parodying, like Walk Hard did, so that you can like play with the beats. But like, I feel like Jerry like would never respect someone else's work enough to really do a parody.
Right.
Like, you know that the JFK parody had to be like a Larry Charles or a Larry David idea, because it would require you to like actually respect what makes like someone else's work function. And there's none of that here.
Giordano and I have watched most of those product movies as, you know, research, but like there's an amazing scene that is just begging to be parodied in the Air Jordan movie. That's like the emotional climax of the film is fucking Matt Damon giving this unhinged monologue about how Michael Jordan will achieve immortality. He's like, "You, sir, are a living god, and we are but mere mortal shoemakers." And they got just like the fucking Aaron Sorkin music swell pumping in the background, and they intersplice scenes of like actual Jordan highlights or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, this self-serious, insane film about the marketing executives should be made fun of. But you need, like Giordano just said, you need to actually understand the thing that you're making fun of. I think also part of the problem is that like this, I'm hoping this moment, this brief moment of the product films will come and go and be but a blip on our cultural radar. But time will tell.
Also, one of the reasons why this movie is so bad is that like Netflix made it, because the issue with Netflix is that like there is kind of like an ecosystem. Like it's not perfect, but like bad movies will bomb at the box office, right? And we can be like, damn, Jerry Seinfeld made like a fucking movie that lost a lot of money. Like, but with Netflix, I feel like Adam Sandler and like other people will like put out these movies, and every time they come out, Netflix is like, oh yeah, just so you know, Adam Sandler's new movie was the most successful movie of all time, according to our internal numbers that we can't show you. But basically, everybody on Earth watched it 3 times, and it's like I've never met a single human who watched this, but I guess I'll take. Sounds great for you. And then it's been funny though, because like I feel like even the algorithm knows that this is bad, because Netflix is like not prominently placing it in my feed at all. But it just sucks that like with like this system that isn't relying on box office numbers, that we don't even get the catharsis of like being like, haha, you made a fucking bomb with your fucking awful passion project.
Is there anything else anybody would like to say about Unfrosted before we move on to the next movie?
The title? Like, what do you mean unfrosted? Isn't the point of the Pop-Tart that it is frosted? Like, what the fuck is the title even a reference to?
That was like the apex joke at the end, where it's like, should we add frosting? And he goes, no. And then the credits roll, you know?
But there is frosting.
Oh,
Anyway.
but Giordano, you were just showing your own fucking ignorance, because did you watch the movie or did you just see it, Giordano?
I think I got to the January 6th part and I was like, all right, I think I've seen the beats that I need to watch.
According to Google's AI, Kellogg's only started frosting the Pop-Tarts 4 years after the Pop-Tarts dropped. So
okay, and that's an important enough detail to title the movie.
So one last like statement that I have about, you know, just like how bad the movie was in general is that, you know, for somebody who dated children for so long, Jerry Seinfeld doesn't know how to direct children at all. Like, I feel bad for these kids. I feel bad for these kids because, you know, like, they're doing their best, but just the way they're told to act is like, this is not, even like in a comedic, like, oh, satirical, we're going to have a kid kind of act like an adult. It's like all the kids in the movie were just kind of bombing, and it's not their fault. They're children. I think it's
and
just
it's not
Seinfeld
the
being
first
like,
time he's said, put those kids in the dumpster.
yeah, dude, imagine if you were a QAnon pilled guy and you watch this movie. You already think that all the Hollywoods are sickos and pedophiles, and you know that Jerry Seinfeld has dated children. And there's a line in which a character just says, "The children yearn for the goo." If you were a QAnon guy, you'd be like, "They're fucking dabbing on us, dude. They're tap dancing in front of us."
Yeah. So yeah.
One more complaint. Sorry, one more complaint, Isaac.
Go on. No, keep going.
Let it
rip. Yeah.
Like the Amy Schumer. Like, this is her most prominent role in years, and like just the fact that I had to listen to her right now, after like what she's been like on Twitter for the last 6 months, it just aggravated me even more. And then seeing all of like, okay, first of all, can we talk also about like the experts that he brings in just so that he can do riffs about like the Schwinn and the Jack LaLanne and like the fucking
Chef Boyardee,
Chef Boyardee, a proud Italian American man.
I'll tell you what it is. It's anti-Italian discrimination.
You know, made to look foolish in this movie.
Okay, so there's a part 2. And it is equally, if not more funny than the part 1 you just listened to. There's a trick, though. There's a catch. It is only available currently to Patreon subscribers. So if you want to listen to part 2, and where we get a little bit more philosophical maybe, then you have to go over to patreon.com/coexistinc and sign up. I will eventually make part 2 available, but for now, please show your support. If you like my show, if you like what I do, $5 a month, if you can, that would be nice. It means more than you know. So I'll see you over on the other side. Maybe.